Welcome to the Early Founder Podcast. My name is Philip, and I'm the founder of Launchpad, a high school startup incubator where I lead high schoolers nationwide through the startup process with the help of industry veterans. Along this journey, I was curious to see what makes an entrepreneur successful, what traits, experiences, and habits they possess, especially while they're young. So that's why I made the Early Founder, to have conversations with those who have made massive breakthroughs at a young age and to share their experiences with other aspiring founders. Today's guest is Roozbeh Ali, the 19-year-old co-founder and CEO of Butler, an AI-powered executive assistant tackling data overload. Butler summarizes updates, joins meetings, takes agentic actions, and enables seamless context parsing through RAG, all with a quick and user-friendly setup. Backed by Go Ahead Ventures, Script Capital, Zfellows, and Tobe Luca, Butler recently secured a $1.2 million Canadian pre-seed round. Currently on a gap year from the University of Waterloo, Roozbeh is at the forefront of AI automation. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So my first question is, where does your company stand today, and what milestone are you most proud of so far?
Yeah, so like you mentioned, we raised a pre-seed. We closed that at the start of September, and we announced that in the middle of October. And right after that, we actually ended up pivoting. Our original idea was like a daily summary that you would log on and see every day. But after a bit of testing, we found that that just wasn't high enough value for people. It was more of a nice to have than a need to have. So we pivoted to what we have now, which is more of like a general AI executive assistant. Yeah, we spent the last couple of months building that out. Everything was from scratch, so it took a while, but we gave it to people on the wait list last week. And yeah, we're just testing, getting feedback, reporting bugs, and just fighting fires. And then soon, I guess we'll be doing our go to market properly. So, marketing, sales, cold outreach again. But yeah.
So can you walk me through what a typical day in the life looks like as the founder and CEO?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty standard. People think like the founder lifestyle is like super crazy. You're going to all these events and conferences and stuff, but nah, we wake up in the morning. We wake up pretty late because we go to sleep late, but
Yeah.
9 or 10 we wake up, we freshen up, go to work, work for a few hours, eat lunch, work for another few hours. I go to the gym every day, so around 6 or 7 I'll go to the gym, come back, work some more, eat dinner, work some more, and then it's back to bed. And then every once in a while we'll go to events in Toronto. The Toronto tech scene is really like ramping up now, so definitely cool to see that. And then sometimes we'll go outside of the province. So we went to Vancouver recently for NeurIPS. We went to California recently for Zfellows as well. So yeah,
Awesome. So when you're referring to we, how big is your team?
yeah. So it's just 4 people right now. It was Birka and I originally, and then we added Carl, who was our friend from high school, and my cousin Shazad, who's full time at Citadel Securities, but he just helps with Butler part time, finances, legal, ops, stuff like that.
Yeah, so how did you, get to know your team and get them to join your startup?
Yeah, so I'll touch on this later, I guess, more. But yeah, Berke reached out to me originally, and then we added Carl after a week or two. But the three of us met in high school, so it was me and Berke on the robotics team. I was a captain, and he was in grade 9, so he just joined the team. And then I was also in this computer science club at our school as the vice president, and Carl was sort of like an up and coming competitive programmer at our school. That's how we met. And then, my cousin and I grew up together. So
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. Such a young team.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, definitely.
Now let's rewind a bit to the early spark, right? So can you tell me about your first experiences with entrepreneurship?
Yeah, I guess my case is a little bit unique. I never had sort of like the classic entrepreneurial like life as a kid. I was always more focused on school, but I guess one thing that I would note is that I was always focused on things that I wanted to do instead of things that people wanted me to do. Like in
Yeah.
middle school, I was less disciplined than I was a child, so I would play video games instead of doing homework, and I was good at video games, so I guess there's that. And then in high school, I got a little bit more disciplined, and I started focusing on things that were actually productive. So, like one thing that people like to talk about is in grade 12, I would always skip class to go work on robotics. Uh, I was absent for at least 70% of the year just because I was working on the robot in the robotics room. So yeah, I guess like throughout my life, I've always just focused on things that inspire me instead of things that people think would inspire me.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's probably what led to your success
Yeah,
today, right?
yeah,
Having
yeah,
this
definitely.
drive towards the things that you're interested in.
Yeah,
So from there, when did you realize you wanted to build something of your own, leading to the creation of Butler?
yeah. I think the idea popped into my head when I saw our friend Encore working on his own startup. So he actually went to the same high school as us as well. I've been very close with Encore since grade 9.
Hmm.
And in grade 11, I think him and his brother started this thing called Beaver Labs, which I think we'll talk about later on. But Yeah, they were working on contracts for other companies, and I was just seeing one of my friends, like one of my close friends, doing all this crazy stuff, and I was like, "This is crazy. I want to do that as well. Why shouldn't I be able to do that?" Uh, but yeah, that's sort of where the idea came into my head. And then at Waterloo, there's a community called Socratica, and it's sort of just like people coming together every weekend to work on things that inspire them. Not even necessarily STEM related things. It could be art, it could be music, whatever inspires you. And I thought that was really awesome. And people were there building their own companies, and that was also very inspiring. So yeah,
That's pretty amazing. Were there any people or events during this time that especially inspired or encouraged you? I know you already touched on Unker, but
yeah, yeah. I think I'm kind of obliged to say Bearcat for this question. I shouldn't like go into the full story; it's very long. But sort of how this started is I was interviewing for co-ops at Waterloo. So the Waterloo system is sort of like you do 4 months of school and then you do 4 months of co-op, and it's just on and off until you graduate. So I was interviewing for my first co-op last summer, and in the middle of that, Barrick had messaged me asking if I wanted to start a startup with him, and I was confused because from what I knew, he was still working at his last startup, Tunnel, but turns out he quit that a month before he messaged me, and yeah, that sort of kicked it off. We started brainstorming ideas. Uh, yeah, I guess that's sort of where it all started.
wow. Can you introduce Bearcat a bit to the audience?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So I'm 19. Like Philip said, I was at Waterloo last year. Bearcat's a lot younger than me. He just turned 16 last like August, uh, sometime around then.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's been sort of doing this entrepreneurial stuff since he was very young. He was 12 when he entered Shopify. He's worked at Aviato, Tunnel, a couple of other startups when he was 14 and 15. Uh, Product Hunt Maker of the Day a couple times, runner-up Product Hunt Maker of the Year. So yeah, he's been doing this for a very long time.
Yeah, that's really inspiring. Starting at
Yeah,
12,
yeah,
he's
incredible.
16 right now. So, you said you said all of you had met at this company called Beaver Labs. Can you tell me
Yeah,
about
yeah,
how you initially got involved?
yeah. So I met Encore in grade 9, and then I met Bearcat in grade 12. I met Carl in grade 11. But yeah, Beaver Design, it was originally called Beaver Labs. Beaver Design was the design agency part of the actual overall agency.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was like it was Encore and his brother running that. And in grade 11, I just asked him like, if you guys need help, just let me know, because I was just getting into like properly developing things on my own at that point. So that was my first taste of web development. The current contract they were working on at that time was a website called OneBitcoin.ca, which is like a Canadian platform for exchanging Bitcoin with CAD and just holding Bitcoin. So yeah, I worked on a couple of flows there, the auth flow, like transaction tables, simple stuff, but it was a good way to get introduced to proper development and how companies function.
For sure. So now moving a bit into building the venture itself. So once you had a clear idea of what you wanted to make with Butler, what were the very first steps you took to get things off the ground?
Yeah, the very first step we took was just building an MVP, or not building an MVP. The first thing we did was validate the idea. We
Yeah.
had friends that were founders, engineers, salespeople, people in finance. So we just reached out to them. We asked if this is something they would be interested in using or paying for. And what we found was that people thought it was a great idea and they thought it had a lot of potential. And this was the original summary idea, so not even anything crazy. But yeah, that sort of gave us the spark we needed to continue with the idea. So we started building an MVP for it. We started reaching out to investors, uh, and then eventually, when we had an MVP ready to demo to people, that's sort of when we started properly fundraising. But yeah, and then in the middle of all of that, I guess we were also building our team. We added Carl 2 weeks in, like I mentioned, and then my cousin joined, I think, a month and a half later.
Mhm. Yeah, I think a common thread I've always noticed is how important validation is, right?
Yeah,
Worst thing is making a startup that no one wants to
yeah,
use.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So moving on from that, like, how did you go from getting like early traction for your idea?
Yeah, I mean, it was mostly just word of mouth. We reached out to people in our network, like I mentioned, and then they told their friends about it. They told their coworkers about it. I think it ramped up, especially when my cousin joined, because he's a little bit older than us. He just graduated from Waterloo CS last year,
Mhm.
and he's worked at tons of companies. So he reached out to people at Microsoft, Wealthsimple, Goldman Sachs, J.P. Morgan, and they all talked to their friends about it. So we could put that on our pitch deck that people at these great companies were interested in using the idea as well. So that was like an additional bit of validation for us.
Very cool. So, along this path, what other resources did you tap into, like funding, mentorship, co-founders, and how did you find them?
Uh, the first one we did was actually this thing called Founders University by Launch.
Okay.
Barrick has been friends with this guy called I forget the name, but it's run by Jason Calcanis, and it's like a early program for when you're just starting a company. And if you get to the end of it, there's a chance that they fund you. We stayed for the first 2 weeks of it. I think it was a 2 month long program. We found that it was just going too slow, but definitely it was a good start for us, and it sort of like ingratiated us into the ecosystem. And then after that, yeah, definitely Z Fellows was awesome. We applied for that the first time, I think a month into it, but then we got rejected. We actually got fast tracked to the final part of it by either Corey Levy or Baylor Adams. But yeah, we applied again later on, near the end of our fundraise. I guess less applied. We just talked to Corey and Baylor, and they invested properly. But yeah, we ended up joining a later batch. That was super awesome.
Yeah. Can you give a brief introduction to Z Fellows?
Yeah, so ZFELS is like a program for young founders, young entrepreneurs, young people that are just building things, and they give you 10K to go take a week off of school or work and go chill in San Francisco. It's really awesome. You get to meet a lot of cool people. When we went to the OpenAI office. We got to go to Max Mullen's personal office. That's one of the Instacart co-founders.
Yeah.
We met Jack Altman, Sam Altman's brother, the founder of Lattice, and lots of other cool people. And then, yeah, we had co-working sessions. We met lots of cool people, and we met each other. I think that was the most important thing. ZFELS is very selective in who they allow into the program, and each batch is very dense with talent. So for our batch, for example, we ended up becoming pretty close. And Aiden, Felix, and Marvin, we're still close with them. And I recently visited them in Vancouver for NeurIPS. So yeah, I think that was the most valuable thing, just meeting other really talented people in your age, like bracket.
Yeah. For sure. When I've interviewed other Z fellows in the past, they've also mentioned like how important the networking opportunities were.
Yeah,
I'm glad it's the same for you.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So you mentioned that you had pivoted pretty early on in your startup, but in the past, let's say like 6 months or so, have there been any like significant changes or pivots that you've had to make?
Yeah, the pivot that I was talking about from summaries to like an AI executive assistant, it was around that time. I think yeah, like October, November. So yeah, like 5 or 6 months ago.
Okay. And I think for the audience, for those who are not that technical, they may be a bit confused on what exactly your startup does.
Yeah,
So could you do like a short elevator pitch or short
yeah, for sure. So Butler's sort of an all-in-one AI executive assistant. So there's all these AI tools that exist out there, but they're very segmented right now. So what Butler does is combine them into one place where the tools are easily accessible and they work on top of each other so they can build on each other's context. So there's a contextual chat, which is sort of like ChatGPT, but has access to all of your data, your files, your emails, your events, your task tracking issues, your version control PRs and commits. So you can ask anything you want, or you can just use it like normal ChatGPT. And then we have a search, enterprise search, so you can search through all of your data, and it's super fast. These two are sort of similar to Glean. Yeah, it's pretty simple. And then our meeting bot joins meetings, summarizes them, gives you meeting notes, action items, key questions. I think people in the audience might have heard of stuff like Read, Fireflies, Granola, Otter.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty much the same thing as that. But what's special for us is that because we have all these features in one place, our meeting notes can be sent to Butler's other context. So you can ask about your meetings in the chat. You can ask Butler if you've met someone before, and then Butler can tell you all about them. You can search for meetings in our search. And yeah, and then I guess the most exciting thing for us is agentic automations. So Butler can run background jobs that automate your emails, your task tracking issues, and your version control. So for emails, for example, we have a label system where you can create labels and automate emails. So when a new email comes in, you can set a rule, and if the email matches that rule, Butler will automatically label it and classify it into like its own folder. And then
Yeah.
based on what actions you specify, it'll apply to that email. So let's say for investors, I set an investor rule, and I say that any email from investors or VCs, put it into this label. and then I can automatically draft replies with AI. I can automatically star it. I can forward it to my team members for spam and sort of like newsletters and stuff. You can unsubscribe, you can put it into a spam folder, you can delete or archive, and there's so much more we're building with that. And it's a similar sort of thing for task tracking and version control. You can send notifications to your phone, you can forward it to people that need to review PRs or issues, and yeah, lots of potential there.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that's all very, very cool. And I think for a company like Butler, right, you're tackling a very important issue, but at the same time, there's also pretty intense competition, right?
Yeah.
Especially with agentic tech and AI AI assistants becoming like a huge thing. So, can you tell me a bit about what's your secret to standing out and differentiating your offering?
Yeah, we're betting, like our thesis is that because Butler has everything in one place, it'll be the winner in the end because every other tool is in the same sort of price bracket, but none of them offered all of these tools in one place. And I think pricing is going to become a very significant moat in the coming days because intelligence is becoming more commoditized. And I think the person or the team that has the best product offering on top of that with the best pricing is going to come out on top. And then on top of that as well, because we have all these things in one place, we're able to build on top of them. Like they're able to build on top of each other. So like I mentioned with meetings, you can ask about them in the chat, and there's so many different sort of like micro interactions that happen between our features that wouldn't be possible in any other app.
Mhm. I see. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So moving back a little bit, I think what's really, really exciting and what's really special about your story is how you had met your co-founders and a lot of your team back in high school or like even
Yeah,
before that, right? So can you just tell me a little bit about that story and you can go in deep because we have a lot of time.
yeah, for sure. So I guess I'll start like at the very start. So Bearcat was in grade 9. I was in grade 12. Carl was in grade 11. Our friend Encore and Mohammed, they were in grade 12 as well. And I'd known Encore for years since grade 9 at that point. And one of our friends was running the robotics team. He was the head captain, and the team was failing. Like it was hot off of like a very very terrible year. They had no funding. All of the captains were gone. So he asked me and Encore to join and Mohammed to join as sort of new captains and bring it back from the dead. So we were kind of bored in grade 12 because at that point for us, we were applying to university, but yeah, I mean, we were applying to university, but we were just bored with school. We'd been through so much of it. So we decided, let's do it. It'll be fun. And we went, and Bearcat was there, and we ended up meeting him. At first, we had no idea who he was, but eventually we found out, like, dude, this guy's cracked. Like, this is awesome. And yeah, I met Carl at the computer science club. And yeah, we sort of just fostered a relationship. Bearcat, Encore, Mohammed, and I, we were all pretty close just through robotics. Uh, and then yeah, Encore had Beaver Labs. The rest of us were just applying to university. Bearcat was doing Bearcat stuff. I remember one time actually, after a robotics meeting, he just casually told me that he had a Well Simple offer for like $50 an hour, and he was 14, and that just blew my mind because like I didn't think that was even possible. Uh, but yeah, that's sort of where we started, and then now I guess we're all doing pretty well. So Bearcat, Carl, and I have Butler, and then Encore is the founder of Bordy, which is going pretty viral now, and Mohammed's joined their team as well. So yeah, that's sort of where we all started. We've all been very close for a long time. We all still keep in touch. We're still really good friends, all of us. So yeah,
Amazing. With such a tight-knit team, do you ever plan on expanding your team in the near future? And if so, what type of people would you be looking for?
yeah, we've thought about it a couple times. I think for us, an important thing is keeping the team really lean. I think we're seeing the emergence of teams in the startup space that are really lean and they're able to go really far. Like the Cursor team, for example, I think
Yep.
it's still under 20 people and they've reached like 100 million ARR, which is crazy. So, yeah, I think it's important for us to keep our team lean. Uh, we're definitely open to hiring. We've tried a couple times. We tried to hire from Waterloo, uh, but we just didn't find the right people. I think if we were able to find the right person, we would definitely hire them. Uh, but yeah, it's just finding the person that's the right fit for us.
Yeah, definitely. So, can you now tell me about your experiences with raising funding and how you managed to close like this $1.2 million CAD round?
Yeah, it was a lot of just cold outreach. We found lists of VCs and we just emailed them, and then we set up meetings and we talked to them. We had a lot of no's, as I'm sure you're like used to it. Like everybody says this. It's just how it is. You have to talk to a lot of people before someone agrees to say yes. But then once you have that yes, it's sort of just easy sailing because you people see that traction. Uh, VCs want to see a lead before they do anything else.
Yeah.
So what happened to us was that we had a lot of people that were agreeing to be follow-ons, but the one thing they wanted to see first was someone lead the round. And once we had that lead, it was pretty much finished for us. We just closed out the round within a month after that. So yeah, it was just a lot of cold outreach.
So with the first lead that took a chance on you, how did you, were there like any specific strategies or how did you manage to close that?
Yeah, so go ahead special in that they actually mean what they say when they say they invest in anybody pre-seed. They have like a pipeline for it. So you go to their website, you click apply, and then you fill out a form. And then if they think your form like details are interesting, they give you an interview, video interview. So it's sort of like applying to university. You do like the
Mhm.
interview with your co-founder. You record a video, you answer their questions, and then you send it to them. And then if they think that's good, they invite you to do an interview with their entire team, like a pitch. So we did that, and they're very fast with their decision making. So it took like I think 2 weeks overall to have that entire pipeline finished out.
Nice.
Uh, but yeah, after that last meeting, it was sort of finalized. They got back to us within 2 days with a term sheet. And after that, we reached back out to our other investor at Script Capital, and we talked to him actually before Go Ahead. But same thing, he mentioned that they're just a follow on. So we went back to him, he agreed, and we got the term sheet. And then, yeah,
Awesome. So actually the whole process of raising funding was actually really short.
yeah, overall, I guess I would say it was pretty short. It felt really long because we were putting in like 12-hour days every day, but yeah, overall it was fairly short. I think it was 3 months in total.
Hmm. You know, founding Butler while still in college, did you face any unique logistical or personal challenges, like maybe dealing with school or dealing with like, other things that you were doing at the time?
I was lucky in that I was supposed to be doing my co-op at that time, so there was no like school obligations. I didn't have exams or homework to do or classes to attend. But definitely, I think for our generation, our parents are like very traditional in that they want you to go to school, they want you to do internships, work at cool companies, and then continue doing school and then graduate, and then just work for the rest of your life in a corporate job. So when I told my parents that I was trying to do a startup, uh, they didn't take it well. They thought I was like wasting my time. Uh, but yeah, that was sort of like the main challenge, just convincing my parents that I wasn't wasting my time and that I was actually doing something productive. And then eventually, when we raised our fund, or raised our round, I told them about it. They were a little more open to it, but they were still really concerned. And then I told them that I was going to take a gap year from Waterloo, and they were like shocked. Yeah, they were very worried. But eventually, we talked it out, and thankfully, they came around. So I think I'm very lucky in that my parents are like logical, understanding people. So now they're completely fine with it, and they trust me in like my what choices I make. So
Yeah.
yeah, we still have a great relationship. I'm actually home right now. I came home for the weekend because Ramadan just started. So yeah,
Yeah, that's very cool. So convincing your parents was a big thing.
yeah, definitely.
What makes you feel so confident uh, that you can do this? Like, I understand that there's a lot on the line, but at the same time, like I strongly believe you can do it. But what gives you that drive to push yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just like an innate understanding that like we have what it takes. It's just an innate like faith, faith in myself, faith in my team. I've known Barricade and Carl for so long. I've known my cousin since I was young, and he's always been sort of like a role model for me. So, yeah, I mean, I have faith in all of us. I think what it takes to make a successful startup is just a good team that works well together. And I think we have that. We have a talented team. We've been friends for a long time. We work well together. We're driven. We're hungry. And yeah,
Great. So now moving a little bit into like looking ahead, right? So where do you see yourself heading in like let's say the next 3 to 5 years?
yeah, actually, I've been thinking about this a little bit. I'm honestly not sure. Uh, I guess the most optimal path would be to just continue with Butler, grow our company, grow our team, grow our revenue and customer base.
For sure. So while you're doing this, have you set any personal goals for yourself?
Yeah, definitely. There's things outside of the startup that I want to focus on as well. So, like I mentioned, I go to the gym every day. I want to have like a nice body. I want to be fit. I want to feel healthy. So I've been focused on that. And then outside of that as well, I focus on having like good relationships with my friends, my girlfriend, with my parents, with my siblings. So yeah, I mean, I take time on the weekends to see them and spend time with them. I think it's important when you're so busy with work to focus on the people that matter to you in life because, you know, work is one thing, but without the people around you, you're nothing. So I think it's important to give them time as well.
Yeah, definitely. All right, we're actually speeding through this.
Yeah.
So now on to, providing some advice, right, to the audience, aspiring founders. So if you could give one piece of advice to a teenager who wants to make a startup tomorrow, what would you tell them?
I would say be hungry. Uh, if you know that you want to do a startup and you have the conviction in yourself and your idea and your team to do it, then go for it. But you have to understand that it's going to take a lot of time and you're going to get a ton of no's. I think before you see anything positive, you're going to see at least 100 no's, maybe 1,000 no's. But that's
Mhm.
just how it is, and you have to be okay with that. But if you're hungry and you're dedicated and you're a hard worker, you'll make it through.
Definitely. Are there any resources that have helped you, like books, podcasts, communities, resources that you would recommend for aspiring young founders?
Yeah, definitely. When we were starting out, we watched YC Startup School, the videos
Yeah.
on YouTube. That was really, really good. I think like one quote that I like to use a lot is "You don't know what you don't know," and I think that applies really well when it comes to startups because when you're starting out, there's like an infinite amount of things you don't know, and YC Startup School is a really good way to learn those things very fast. And then on top of that, I guess when you're more like deep into the ecosystem, you're learning about the people around you in your network. Watching podcasts is a great way to like learn. So a couple of our friends run podcasts. Evan McCann, he runs a podcast called The Hard Part with founders from Canada. So that's a really awesome podcast. Would recommend that definitely. And then bigger podcasts like Lex Friedman, Dwarkesh Patel. I watched Lex Friedman's interview with Arvind Srinivas, the Perplexity CEO, recently. Lots
Yeah,
of great insights. So yeah, I would definitely recommend that as well.
for sure. Um, you know, not just in terms of your hiring process, but let's say if you were to tell someone who is trying to make a startup and they're relatively young, are there any specific skills, they can be hard, they can be soft, or experiences that you would recommend someone learn?
Yeah, I guess I would say be technical. Like we're seeing a lot of people that aren't technical start really successful companies nowadays because they can hire engineers and they can hire a CTO. But I think it's a different sort of thing to be technical yourself and have a team that's also technical because you can understand every single part of the company very deeply. So like for me, I'm the CEO and I'm not supposed to be programming too much, but I still program sometimes and I helped code like a lot of our initial app and I helped develop the MVP and everything. So yeah, I think it's important to have that because it gives you additional insights. And on top of that, I guess just learn how to talk. When we were starting out, Berika and I were very bad at pitching. We had no idea what we were doing. The first pitch we had, actually, the investor told us that it sounded like a school presentation because that's all we'd done so far. We've never pitched to anybody. So like you'll learn this quickly as you do it. But uh, pitches are not like school presentations. You don't need like a slide deck. All you have to do is go in there and talk about your idea, talk about yourself, and just be casual.
Yeah, for sure. I think a lot of people have this notion that you need like this super high tech slide deck and you need to
Yeah,
like use all of these different terms, but in reality, it's just like the face to face conversation, right?
yeah, exactly.
hmm If you could go back in time right now, what would you tell your 13, 14-year-old self about entrepreneurship?
I don't think I would tell him too much. I think the path I followed was pretty good. I think I'm happy with where I am right now. And I think if I told myself, a younger version of myself, about entrepreneurship, I would be misguided and I would have my focus in the wrong place. But I guess I would just tell him that it's possible to do it when you're young and you shouldn't ever let your age deter you from doing things. Uh, like if my 13-year-old self heard about Bearcat doing these things, I think maybe I would have tried doing them myself as well at his age. But yeah,
hmm How did you become so technical, and how did the rest of your team become so technical?
I think we're all self-taught actually. I learned from just watching YouTube videos and experimenting with code on my own. I think Bearcat was the same thing. I think he just took a summer and learned JavaScript, learned HTML, and started making things.
Yeah.
Uh, Carl started off as a competitive programmer. He's very talented as a competitive programmer, so that was his thing. He just did like leak code. He was on Dmodge a lot, and he just competed in competitions. But yeah,
So I think we've reached near the end of the episode. Like, do you have any final thoughts or words of encouragement for young founders?
Yeah, I guess I would reiterate that you shouldn't ever let your age deter you from doing things and building things. There's people even younger than Bearcat and our team that are building startups now. So, you know, just go do it. If you have a cool idea, if you know that it's what you want to do, if you're bored in a summer, just go do something. Go build something. Go make something for yourself. And yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Do you think starting so young can be a disadvantage, or are there or do like the advantages outweigh the disadvantages?
I think there's some on both sides. Uh, it's an advantage in that people see that you're young, and it's sort of like a shock factor because you're like a 16-year-old or a 19-year-old that is doing the same things that people would expect full-grown adults to be doing.
Mhm.
But then it's a disadvantage as well because people see you and they know that you're inexperienced just by virtue of being so young. But yeah, I mean, I think they end up balancing each other out. So it's the same thing as if you're a grown adult doing it. It's the same thing.
Yeah. I think the whole purpose of the whole like ethos behind this podcast is that you shouldn't underestimate yourself, and that
Yeah, exactly.
young people are definitely capable of making, and we've seen from examples, right, that literally anyone can make a startup as long as they're dedicated
Yeah,
enough and put the time into it. Great.
100%.
All right. Yeah, I think that's everything. Thank you so
All right.
much.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for having me.